Good day, and thanks for joining the Dragon podcast for Saturday, July 24th. As always, I'm your host, Dennis Franklin, coach of the Under Fives. In this episode, our deckside chat will be with Juma Amisi, senior men's player, as well as a member of the senior board. We'll also be having our alumni chat this week with a bit of a blast from the past, but it's Richard Adams. So he's a former coach back from the 90s. Went on, did some coaching with Alberta, the national program in Canada a bit, and then made his way over to Cayman Islands to be the technical director of the national program as well as the national coach. So quite the resume through Richard there. But let's just start off getting into the news. So really happy to say that Saturday is back as a rugby day. So we've got the senior women and the senior men starting up some games today, and so it's the first time in a long time. So really excited for them, and just want to wish the best of luck to all the teams that are playing out there today, and all the players to get back out there and have a great time. Games are at the Nor'Westers Clubhouse today. You can check out the Facebook page for some information on that. Really excited that rugby's back. Tickets for the Canada Sevens are on sale now, so if people are looking to get to the games at Commonwealth Stadium September 25th and 26th, you can visit canadasevens.com, and you basically just go click into the Edmonton side, and then it'll show you all the different ticket packages and what may be of interest to you. So obviously we want to have lots of Druids out there at the event, and I've said it before in other podcasts, it's one of the best events I've ever been to when I was in Vancouver, and so it's a great sporting opportunity to check out. In addition, for this week, just with some shout outs, just want to thank My Shack Crane and Rigging just for their help. For many who may not know, we had some on one of our fields, the posts went down over the winter after one of the big storms, but basically My Shack Crane and Rigging helped out, as well as some of our own club volunteers like Bob Cousy. So we just want to thank everyone for their support with that. As well, another shout out's just going to go out to got to recognize Brent and Stacy Gallagher. Everything they've been doing for the junior program for so many different years, but I mean, I see it week in, week out, and just how committed they are to helping support the club with that. It goes a long way in our club development and just making the experience great for the junior program. Stacy with registration and just helping make sure everything's running smoothly and communicating out to all of our parents what's going on. Things change fast, and to do that for so many teams, it's definitely appreciated. And for Brent, there's a number of high profile people in our rugby club, but I can say firsthand that I think the highest profile for the under 5s, 7s, 9s, like it's got to be Brent Gallagher, because they know him as the Freezy guy. And so all the kids, they always ask me about halfway through practice, when are we getting freezies? Where's the freezy guy? And so that's Brent. And so just want to give a shout out to Brent and Stacy for everything they do to kind of help support the club for so many years. And then also just with the junior program, it's amazing what they do. All right. So we're just going to get right into the interviews. We'll start with Juma. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Deckside Chat edition of our weekly podcast. I've got Juma Amisi with me right now. Juma, thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Dennis.
Yeah, appreciate it. So Juma is a member of the senior club, and he's also works on the board for the senior club as well, too. So really appreciate all that. Also, recent graduate within commerce with finance. And now in law school?
Yeah, I begin law school in September. So
awesome. Well, congratulations, Juma. That's really exciting. And we're happy to have potential another lawyer joining the ranks of the rugby club. So, anyways, tell us a little bit about your schooling, how you got into that side of things, and what kind of got you, steered towards law.
Well, honestly, when I was literally junior high, grade 7, I started like looking around for like different career opportunities that I wanted to do when I'm older. And sports, I was always good at sports, but I knew I couldn't play professionally just because I couldn't play the same sport like every single day because I got too bored of it. So I came across Sports Agent, which was like behind the scenes doing the things like controlling money and all that kind of stuff that I'd like to do. So you're kind of in the pro sports world, but you're behind the scenes. And a lot of during my research, I found that most sports agents actually got the business degree or they were lawyers. So then I just decided I wanted to do both. And then from there, I've kind of been on a mission, and then just graduated my business degree with finance, and then going into laws. And then after that, I plan to become a sports agent for professional sports. So,
all right, so you heard it here. If any rugby player is looking for a future agent, come talk to Juma. He's your guy, right?
Exactly.
There we go.
I'm looking for clients anytime.
Perfect. So, anyways, let's get into the rugby side a little bit. Juma, how'd you get started in rugby?
So actually, funny story. I was in the summertime. I played track and badminton. This is back in junior high as well. And one of the rugby coaches kept asking me to play, and they played flag. But back then, you don't know what rugby is. You're just like, whatever. So one day I was at badminton practice, and he literally picked me up off the gym floor, brought me out to a practice. And Austin Creighton, who's one of the players on our team, was on there as well. And then during that season, I did really good. But one of the final championship games, we went out to watch Austin play at Ellerslie during like that Saturday where they do all that festival kind of stuff. And then I was watching their games, and cause I didn't watch a tackle game yet, and I was like, I was kind of intrigued. So then from there, we were in the clubhouse actually, and then a couple of Druid coaches were in there, and I was just lipping them off, just telling them I could beat it, I could dust all the players and all that. So then they challenged me to come out to a practice and see how it actually is. And ever since then, I came out with Austin one time, and the rest is kind of history.
So how did that first practice go then?
It was definitely different. It wasn't like flag. It was actually tackle and doing all that. So very different, but my first game went really well because all I had to do was run and nobody was catching me. So
were you on the wing then?
Yeah,
there you go. That's the initiation into your first rugby game. You go on the wing.
Yeah, you go on the wing.
Catch the ball, run with it, right?
And then you learn the game after a year or so. You start actually understanding what everything is, and never really understood any of the rules. I just knew how to run.
So did you keep on playing wing or a little bit of fullback? Did you dive into any other positions?
I was mostly in the back three, but like when I was younger, they had me in centers. Actually, they had me in the centers when I was younger, not even the wing.
Okay.
Because I was bigger than most of the people in my age group, so it was a natural position to put me in. But as I got older, of course, I'm like shorter and all that. And sprinting is more of my specialty, I guess they would say. So then I became on the wing, and then after that, well, now I play scrum half because at high school they put me at scrum half, and then the coaches here started putting me at scrum half for the senior side.
So out of all those different positions that you played, what would be your favorite?
I love playing the wing, but scrum half right now has to be my favorite just because how involved you are in the game. Yep. But sometimes you hate it, sometimes you love it. But like it's good because you have a lot more responsibility in controlling the team and trying to get the W because you're always involved, you're always running, you're always doing something. So yeah, enjoy playing scrum half
for sure. And so, give yourself a rating on a scale of 1 to 10. Mm-hmm. What would your pass be as a scrum half?
Oh, my pass is probably like a 4. But everything
keep
else,
the ball in tight with the forwards. Okay.
It's gotten better though over the year. My delivery got better, but like yes, not as sharp as some others. But like
All right. So picking up a loose ball, going for a run, then scale of 1 to 10.
I'd actually picking up a loose ball, like coming off the ruck. I'm definitely running.
Yeah, you're going. You keep up with me. Yeah, got that winger speed, but yeah. Okay, tackling.
Tackling, I actually like tackling, so that's like, I wouldn't say it's a 10. Depends if it's like my similar physique or a bit bigger. I give it like a 7. Yeah, 7 or 8. Yeah, not too many like dominant tackles, but I'm gonna get you.
Bigger guys, you got to go for the ankles, right?
Yeah, just going for ankles. If sometimes they're too big, I just got to make sure I'm in front of them and get hit. But like, I'll take the hit for the boys. So
for sure, right on. Okay, box kick.
7. I'll give it a 7. Yeah.
Okay,
No,
work on that.
I've been working on it. It's not like now it's a little bit more accurate, but before it was like all over the place, you know. But
Yeah.
I'm getting better. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. All right, and who's talking more on the field? You at 9 or whatever 10 you're playing with?
Uh, I'm definitely actually no. The 10 is talking a bit more than I am, but he's kind of controlling the flow, and I'm just dishing the ball. But in set pieces, I'm normally the one who's trying to get stuff done there.
Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about this year a little bit because it's a bit of a different year for us, obviously, coming off a year with no rugby, and then now we're kind of back into it. Why don't you just talk a little bit about the senior men's side and what's going on right now with that?
Yeah, so we just started practicing currently. So I think our first games are this weekend. We're playing an exhibition. So the original plan was we're going to do like 5 weeks of kind of 10s, which was the original plan, and then we'd go into 15s. But it looks like now we're going to 15s. But right now we have like around 31 guys registered. So sessions have been good out here, and the guys are really excited to be back. Obviously training really hard and putting in actually really good work. I'm not playing full time this year. I'm kind of just training in and out and just enjoying my last couple months here before I move away. So haven't been really too involved with the team, but I'm excited. Like we have a really good squad this year as well. So hopefully we can get some more wins.
Perfect. And so the moving away, that's for law school, I'm assuming?
Yeah, correct.
So what school are you going to?
So I'll be actually at the University of Birmingham in the UK there. So
quite the move. So you'll pick up a few extra rugby
mates
over there and bring them back over here, or so you're gonna play the game for the school, or what are you hoping, or just focus on studies to get going and then see how it goes?
I'll be focusing on studies, but like obviously I won't have like all those extracurriculars and things I normally do when I'm here, like a lot of volunteering I do here, and I'm a lot busy during the school year, but over there I'll be kind of free. So the school actually has an ice hockey team.
Oh yeah.
So instead of going there and being a decent player, I can go and be like a black Connor McDavid, they say.
So you heard it here. Juma's going to play ice hockey in Birmingham. So. All right. So with that too, then you talked a little bit about the volunteering. Let's talk about the board position. So you've been involved with the board for a few years now, I believe.
Yeah, since October 2018. So
okay.
A couple of years.
Tell us about the positions you were in and what that experience was like.
Experience is pretty good. Like just being like a player and just having, you don't really think of or know like all the things that actually go behind, like giving the players this experience and being able to play and whatnot. So it's kind of an eye-opening experience for me, but it's also a cool one just working with all the other board members and trying to get things done and move the club in a good direction. And then right now we're also working on a big capital project for the club, so that's kind of been ongoing, but a lot of work. But
yeah,
it's worth it. Just knowing that you're contributing in some way to help the club move forward is real good.
Yeah, and definitely appreciate that. And at the same time, it looks good on a resume when you're
exactly.
applying to law school as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So there you go. So yeah, so Juma, is there anything else you kind of want to discuss or chat about before we get going, or
let me see. I don't know, like what else to talk about.
It's up to you. You could say say bye to everyone,
or
to all of your fans out there in the Druids.
My mind is blank right now.
Put them on the spot. So yeah, we'll work on that for whenever you're in court.
It's a lot easier when you just get asked questions or you got to figure out an argument to go back and forth with. But just discussions. But
are you planning then you go to Birmingham, stay there, or is it come back here, practice law here?
Oh, so one of the hockey programs that I actually this is kind of a long story. One of the hockey programs that I mentor for and I volunteer at during my Wednesdays. I used to be a part of the program when I was younger. And then the law firm that does all the legal stuff for that organization, they've seen me grow up since I was like a little kid, right?
Yeah.
So I used to always, like Christmas parties when they'd come, I'd always used to hang out with them and all that. And then I started playing on their beer league hockey team, and we have a close connection there. So then I know all the bosses and all that stuff. So they're all basically, I have a certified position already there. And
There you go.
So basically, when I come back, and they're the ones who actually, I guess, how do you say it, encouraged me to actually go over to the UK instead of stay here, because it's a really cool experience. Like a lot of their lawyers there, the associates, did that. So when I go there for 2 years, come back here, and then I'll be working here and planning to, leave my roots here. So
Awesome. Well, you know what? We got future sports law expert, future player agent. Again, Juma, we wish you all the best as you head on towards law school.
Thank
Look
you.
forward to seeing you a bit more over the summer here before you go, and look forward to seeing you when you come back also at the same time too, for whether it's a visit or once you've finished that degree. So definitely appreciate you coming on, and like I said, appreciate all of your volunteer work with the board and helping push some of those projects and just different initiatives forward. So
thank you so much
from
for
the club.
me.
Thank you with that, and we look forward to seeing you when you get back, I guess. So.
I'll be back in the summertime, but thank you for having me out here. It's actually dope. Like, I love being out at the field, so anytime I can get out, have an excuse to get out here, I'll come out here. So
perfect. And we want to see footage of you playing hockey in the UK as well.
So. Oh yeah, you'll be seeing it on Sports Center.
There you go. Right on. All right, thanks, Juma.
Yeah.
I've got with me Richard Adams. Many people from the club know him as Coach Dicky or Dicky. And so, my whole life, that's all I've known you. When I learned your name was Richard, I was never heard it before. I'm like, who's that? So, it's a long-standing nickname that a lot of people have known you by. But anyways, I want to welcome, Dicky Adams to the podcast. Dicky, thanks for joining us.
It's my absolute pleasure. It's great to catch up with you, Dennis. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, so just kind of before we hit the record button, I guess, we were chatting a little bit. There's a number of other people during these podcasts that played in the 90s particularly that kind of speak to you as one of their coaches and mentors back at that point in time. But before we get into that, let's just talk a little bit about your background, where you come from, how you ended up in Canada to coach the Druids, and how you got involved in rugby at a young age and then into coaching.
Oh, wow. That's a story. Not a very interesting one, to be honest with you. I started playing rugby at school because basically if you didn't play rugby, you couldn't play any other sport. And I was a mad footballer. I really enjoyed my football. It was terrible, but I really enjoyed it because that's what all my family did and had done to a fairly high level. But then we moved and I went to Northampton and literally they said, if you're not a first 15 rugby player, don't bother coming to play football. So we had this magic rugby team the first season I ever played rugby and the worst football team ever. Never won a game at football, but we won the under 11s cup at school. So my first season of going from one sport to another was completely 100% sold on me within the first 6 months that I ever took up the game. And I basically lost all interest for anything else sport related and focused very heavily on my rugby. I was very lucky to have some wonderful coaches and some wonderful peers who were very good at not only teaching me rugby but keeping me a bit on the straight and narrow, because I was one to sort of tend to wander a fair bit, and then I had some wonderful opportunities to play rugby, at good levels and great clubs, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I started coaching, funnily enough, when I was still at school. So when I was in my fifth year at school, the PE teachers would have me coach the under 12 team and then referee under 13 level matches, because they said it would really help me develop my game to understand the game from the other side, and an absolute love for coaching. My first experience is a bunch of cheeky 11-year-old boys who think they know everything about rugby, and it's cold, it's raining, it's frosty, and they're all out there in their little outfits with their pink legs and pink arms, and they're all cheeky, and it's just a phenomenal experience to watch a bunch of kids, develop into a team and play. from somebody who had a very limited, rugby knowledge myself at that point. And my teachers were absolutely right. The lessons I learned about the way I played came very much from that time of coaching and refereeing. So it's something that always very interested me. And I remember my father asking me before he passed the cancer, he said, now, what is it you really want to do? Because you're sort of floating around, and I was working in the IT industry at the time. And I said, well, I really wanted to be a pro rugby player, Dad, but there's no such thing. And I'm sort of getting on and my body's a bit knackered now. And I said, but I'd really love to be a coach, but there's really nowhere I can go and do that either. So, that was the honest answer, and that's what it was at the time. And I made a decision to play a final year, basically, with the club I was at the time, and I played that season out. And then I decided I was going to go do a bit of travelling and enjoy myself, and I got myself a contract to go to Australia, Perth in Australia, and play a season there. And unfortunately, I was supposed to go out there, I think in about October, if I remember right, something like that. I destroyed my shoulder quite badly, so I had to call them and say, listen, I'm going to be out for a fair while here with a shoulder injury. Do you still want me to come? And they kind of said, listen, you're going to miss a fair chunk of the season, so we'll call it quits. So I kind of found myself in a situation where I'd made arrangements to go away, and it had all fallen through, and I'd already given notice of my job and all this sort of stuff. And I saw an advert in the rugby world, from Lynn Davies, and it was, ever thought of coming to Canada to play rugby? And I was like, wow, there's a place I want to go. I really, really want to go to Canada. I've always wanted to go to Canada. So I wrote, and within, I think, about an hour, I got a response going, love to have you, blah, 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 all the details. So I literally, in the space of about 4 days, went and bought a ticket, jumped on a plane and flew over. I arrived at immigration coming in with my letter to say I was going to come and play for the Druids, but I'm not professional and I don't need a work permit and I've got X amount of cash in my account before I come in. It was the same day that a poor lad was being sent out of the country for misbehaving, who'd also been an import who'd come in and played for the Druids. So it wasn't a particularly good day for me to arrive at immigration, and I got hauled into a back room, and they're like, "So who are you really? Another one of these delinquent rugby players from overseas." So it was an interesting entry into the country, and I came out to my first session, and there was a lady coach, and I can't remember, she used to run the Alberta Rugby Union, lovely lady, Scotty's wife. Helen, yes, Helen Wright, and I watched what was going on, and she ran this great sort of block of sessions around different workstations and stuff, and everybody's getting involved, and there was a kind of a group of guys stood in the corner, not really doing much, and so I kind of wandered over because I was really sort of interested in what was going on with this group, and it was Kenny Exton and Kenny Bravo. Just a bunch of wonderful Lorne Cardinal, wonderful guys standing. I'm like, well, what are you guys doing? And they're like, well, no, we're the fourth team, and we don't have a coach, so we just kind of, we kind of chat and maybe play a bit of touch and stuff. And I said, well, look, listen, I'm here. I've got a duff shoulder, so I'm happy to sort of work with you guys for a while. Let's do something. So we did a few sessions, and it's it was a magic. I was in Canada. I wanted to see Canada while I was rehabbing. So, basically I showed up and did 2 sessions with them a week. And then I got taken away every single weekend to a different place in Alberta, and all sorts of camping and canoeing and climbing. And, I had a magic 6 months in Canada. It was absolutely phenomenal. When I rehabbed my shoulder, I played all my rugby for the 4th team that year. And we had Kirky Mockford and Gary Nelson. And it was just so much fun. And we had such a wonderful season, and we won the city championships, and it was so many fond memories. So I went home again, and sort of made that decision that I wasn't going to play anymore. I was finished with the playing side, and I actually got a phone call from Kenny Exton, and he said, "Listen, we've got an opportunity to do some work with our second team if you're interested." It didn't pay much, but I was dating a Canadian girl at the time, and things kind of conspired to moving. So we made that decision and ended up moving back, and that's how I came to start working at the Druids, and we had a great year with the second team. And then, it was wonderful to be asked to coach the first 15 sides, and it was an absolute privilege as a guy who just love watching people develop. It's such a cool thing to see.
So, yeah, that is quite the story. So you grew up in Northampton for the most part, correct?
Yeah, I grew up in a lot of places. Yeah, I started playing my rugby in Northampton, and I finished off playing it in Surrey, and then London.
Okay, and then you obviously, like you said, you made your way to Edmonton, played for the Druids. Sounds like classic Lynn, where it was all business. You saw that ad or whatever, you were over.
Yeah.
No messing around. And then, so let's get into, the coaching. You said you like watching players develop and all that. And obviously, coming from where you're from in England, and, especially at the time, coming over to Canada, being a part of a club, which is a mix of a bunch of different expats and Canadians and quite a blend of individuals, I'd imagine. But what were those first few years of coaching the first div team like, and how did that grow into more for yourself personally?
Yeah, I mean, for me, coaching, I love watching guys develop, and I love watching people develop, outside of the game from the lessons you learn within the game. So, the things that really stick with you when you're making a first impression with Canadian players, in my experience, and not just Alberta players, but guys throughout Canada, is the intensity and the respect they have for knowledge that you're willing to share and impart. So it makes sharing knowledge really easy, because you almost feel as though it's being absorbed. So my experience in the UK with young guys was great. They were the same, but as players got older, they more and more of this attitude of, I know more than the coach does. I know more than the coach does, and you're pushing the boundaries. And I need better coaching, without doing the work. So you don't get that in Canada. I've never experienced that attitude in Canada, apart from one gentleman who is from England, funnily enough. So the fact that players soak up so much knowledge makes you go out and become more knowledgeable. I sat and did the NCCP courses, and I learned a massive amounts of information from that I was then able to share with guys, which you can see made a massive difference. The way they played and the way they enjoyed the game, and the way they interacted with each other and with the opposition. So, I was able to introduce some of the aspects of the rugby I'd played at that time into what we were doing, while leaving all the things I really admired about what was going on in Canada that was unique to Canada and unique to those players, because that was a whole different brand of rugby. So for me, it was a super exciting project, because I'm in a new country with a whole new brand of players who were doing things I've never seen before, in phenomenal ways, that I can sort of interface with things that I've known, for years. And it was just such an exciting time, with such a great group of guys who wanted to work and wanted to learn and wanted to have success. The start wasn't brilliant. I think we lost our first 5 or 6 games, in the season that I started. And there was a conversation on a bus back from Calgary, when there was a comment made, and I said, listen, we've lost the first 5 or 6 games. I'm not feeling too good as a coach about that, And there was some chat about this whole business, because we've been playing the Calgary teams, and they were always very strong about it being okay because it was close enough. and one gentleman, I can't remember his name, he just basically said in not the same words clearly, we're better than this. What we're doing is not good enough. We're not working hard enough. We're not doing what we're being asked to do, and what the plan is, and it completely shifted what happened with that team at that moment. But it shifted the mental set of the entire club for the next decade, because that group of players then instilled in everybody else who came through after them the same desire to win. When you were a first team player, it wasn't good enough just to play, and that was the environment that those players set up. I didn't come in and set that up. They set that up for themselves, and they honoured that. And I knew at that moment that we were going to be able to interface, and we were going to be able to do some exciting things. And we won provincials that year against the Calgary Irish side that had, I think, at least 3 guys who were playing for Canada and hadn't lost a game, I think, in over 4 years to anybody. And then out of the blue, we picked their pocket. But, I mean, we did it with style. Charles Smith, he was on fire. And Brent and Stoney and some of these guys, Stevie, me at hooker, they came out of nowhere in this final day. Brent, just a lot of foreign guys too, but man, it was unbelievable the way they came together, and that was their environment that they set up, and that was just because people were comfortable with what we were trying to do. Because it's not like I played rugby in France too for a bit. I didn't mention that earlier, but you see so many Australian and Kiwi and South African coaches in France, and they're wonderful, wonderful coaches, but they fail because they're trying to put programs from those countries into countries that don't have those athletes and play that way. They don't have that understanding. So coming to Canada and learning, what it was that the guys wanted to do, learning how to coach a lot myself through the NCCP and explain myself and explain, or understand reaction of the guys. It was just such a wonderfully symbiotic relationship with those guys, and it was absolutely phenomenal for me just to watch how much everybody enjoyed what they were doing. The result of that was that they had great wins and they did great stuff. But for me, the excitement was just watching those guys come together, play, and have so much fun. I mean, it was so tight. They drank together, they ate together. I mean, they got together every Saturday morning and had breakfast, the whole team. They had a run, they hung out, they went to games in their white shirts and their ties and their trousers. And it was all the environment they created for themselves. It wasn't anything I did. It was all of that. And it was an absolute pleasure to be around. And as far as I understood, it changed the culture of where the club was going. So it was a very special time to be involved. And I think it led to a lot of really positive things, the creation of the girls program and certainly the massive increase in the youth program. It was different times. Obviously, the Druid security was really good at securing the future of the club. There was a lot of money in the account for that, so there weren't the same sort of financial worries and constraints. So it was a really exciting time to be involved, and I felt that the players there, created an environment that they gained a lot of success from. Players that went on for Canada, and guys who played for Alberta and Edmonton who had phenomenal careers. It's such a wonderful group of memories, and girls and youth players, and it was great, and especially when we got into the rugby park and sort of could create that identity.
Just looking back to that and kind of hearing it from, the way you describe it, like the culture of that team and then the enhancement of the culture of the club as a whole, like it just seems like over time that got carried forward and, really got set with, success on the pitch sometimes comes with that, off-field camaraderie and like how that works out to really create a team, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's that belief in the guys. You don't necessarily, you don't want to hang out with everybody all the time, But when you sort of all agree that you're going to put your rugby head on and go to work, then you're a unit. You all get on, you all respect each other, and you all trust each other. We're not all the same, and you have your clowns and you have your villains, and you have your serious guys, and they're just people who would never normally mix. Body science and all that says those kind of people are diverse, but you throw them into a rugby environment. And in one way, they all become symbiotic. In every other way, they're different. But in that there's a very special bond because there are no barriers when you're on the rugby field. So there's a breakdown of barriers outside of it in your relationship, only in your relationship, but within that. So this is an opportunity you would, especially, understand the class system in the UK and Europe, which, they just don't mix. It's a very special opportunity to create these friendships and links with people that last a lifetime that you would never ever get the chance to do otherwise. And it's such a special thing to do and have the opportunity to do.
For sure. Yeah, that's really well said. Okay, let's talk a little bit about you had some club success, obviously, and then you made your way to do some coaching within Rugby Alberta, I believe, and then also for the under-19 program for Canada. So why don't you talk a little bit about that, what that experience was like at that time?
Yeah, it was good. I had a couple of great seasons with the Druids, and then I got an opportunity to work with Alberta men, first of all. Had a great couple of years with them. Again, interesting because it opened up an opportunity to expand, the sort of two hemisphere rugby I'd been looking at, between, the Canadian special talents and what I'd learned with other sort of European players that were in Alberta, that were playing for Alberta, that had a different blend again of what they'd learned and how it had changed while they'd been in Canada. So there was a third angle coming in of what you could actually do with the players because the knowledge base was there. And it was a wonderful, I took over Alberta at a time when the rugby, I think, had been floundering a bit. And, we ran these massive open trials in Edmonton and Calgary and did all sorts of drills and stuff. And basically, it was just an exercise to sort of see who was really going to give it a go and who wasn't out of these guys. And that's kind of how they all got selected. And I had a wonderful group of guys that I worked with at the time, coaching-wise and management-wise, that were just phenomenal. And again, we were able to sort of mould this team into something that it really had no right to be. Alberta rugby at the time was definitely behind BC, definitely behind Ontario, definitely behind Newfoundland. Those were the sort of powerhouses at the championships. And they'd been relegated into Tier 2 the year I took over. So we played in the Tier 2 championships and won that to go back up into Tier 1. And then we went on to play Fraser Valley in Calgary, and absolutely turned the tables on Fraser Valley and beat them in Calgary, which was just unheard of in Canadian rugby. And it was a major milestone for our Tier 2 team. So we all kind of knew we had something special, and we had a wonderful group. And we went to Fraser Valley and we beat Fraser Valley in Fraser Valley, and we played. I think we played the Crimson Tide, and we lost narrowly. We've had a lot of good games, and then we went to championships in Newfoundland. And unfortunately, before the final game, we'd beaten everybody and shocked everybody, and we had to play Newfoundland in the final for the championship. We were there, and Chow pulled his hamstring, and I'm sure everybody knows how good a goal kicker Chow is. But I mean, back in the day, Chow was a phenomenal goal kicker because he had a very long leg, very accurate in quite horrendous conditions at times, and that was a real skill. So it was a major loss to us when Chow did that. And we played this game and we lost it by, I think, 3 points. But we missed 5 penalty kicks in front of the post. I mean, literally in front of the post. So very disappointing. And we came back from that, and there was talk about rebuilding, carry on, and anyway, things ended up changing, and my good friend Rick took over the program, and then that boosted Rick on his way to the Canadian stuff. So, it was always just to mention Rick, because he was such a great guy to play against and coach with, and compete with, both as a player and a coach, and then to work with later on to collaborate at provincial and national levels. So exciting relationships that were being formed all the time. Anyway, so I then ended up moving on to coach the women, the Alberta women, which was my first experience ever working with girls rugby, really at an elite level. So it was an interesting experience, and again, it was a coaching experience which taught me a vast amount about how literal people will take instructions. Girls are very literal. If you tell them that's the way to do something, then that's the way to do something. And if you don't explain that there's variations of ways to do that things, then generally girls, they don't learn that. So you've got to be very explicit, and you've got to be very detailed, and you have to be very clear and concise, because girls process differently to guys. Guys tend to learn from watching. So when you coach guys, you tend to demonstrate. You don't really need to do that with girls. Once you've explained it, they get it, and they'll go do it. And if you haven't noticed that, try it. It's really quite interesting. You stand explaining things to guys, they sort of stand and look at you. So once you go, no, like this, I got it, let's do it. Whereas the girls, you say, no, and they'll go, oh, okay, and they're doing it before you can let them go. So that was a phenomenal experience. And we had pretty much the same experience. We got into the final, I think it was against Ontario, BC, and should have won the game. There were a couple of little bubbles, and it was over. But again, to watch that women's team come together and grow, and believe in themselves, because Alberta were never, you were always the poor sister of BC and Ontario. So to actually get the belief to believe that could be done with that group of players was wonderful to see. There was a lot of really, really good experience. Girls who'd played for Canada and won with Alberta, Jade Ronbold, and just some wonderful girls. And again, I learned so much from it. It was a phenomenal experience. And then one day I got a call from Ian Burtwell, who was the national men's head coach in Canada. That was in 1994. And he said, listen, I was at the national championships in Newfoundland, and I really enjoyed what you did with the team. I was really impressed. I'd like you to come out and work with the Canadian team before we play the Australian Barbarians. So that was actually my infamous start with coaching in Rugby Canada. So I was coaching Alberta when we played the Australian Barbarians, and then they went on to Ontario, and then Newfoundland, and then Canada. We scored again. I think the score was like 76-14 or something. We were the only team that scored any points on them, I think, the whole tour. So, and I think we had the smallest deficit on the whole tour as well. So it was very much a moral success for the team, and a lot of fun. I remember Kerry Weeb in that in particular. He ruptured his Achilles, but I mean, he was an absolute athlete. Very unfortunate, scoring a try right at the end against Australia Barbarians, which was the World Cup side 18 months later. So it was a magic achievement. Anyway, so I digress. So it ended up that they cancelled the game with Canada. So my actual start to Canadian coaching was 94, but I never got on a plane. I never did anything other than receive a letter saying you've been appointed as an assistant coach for this game, which I still have. And then a year later, a gentleman called Carl Fix called me, and he said he was the new director of junior rugby and was interested in working with Rugby Canada. And I said, yes, I would be interested in putting my name in the hat. And he said, what sort of level? I said, anything as long as it's not kids. So I got a call a week later, and they said, "Right, you're working with the under-19 team, going to Wales on tour as an assistant coach." So obviously, I was very delighted and very proud. I was still only about 27 years old at that time, so it was a real honour to get involved. But I went on this tour to Wales with this band, and none of them had played international rugby before, so it was a brand new group, and I didn't know the other coaches or the trainers, or there was no Alberta players. I think on the tour. Oh no, there was Ryan Ferry was on that tour, yeah, and I think maybe Colin I think was on that tour, Colin Hughes maybe, and I really sort of didn't know anybody. And I felt that the other two coaches were from BC. They were, huge reputations, very well known. Excuse me. And I was quite intimidated with the whole thing. And the head coach was a guy called Paul Horn, who's an amazing character, and the other assistant coach is Don Burgess, who's an absolute Canadian legend. I mean, he's played fullback for Canada in the day when rugby was rugby and balls were balls. Tough old guy, a phenomenal coach, lovely guy. I learned so much from both of them. But I came out for my first session, and Paul's says, "Right, we'll just break you in slow, a little bit here and a little bit there, nothing too hard." So I'm just, yeah, okay, that's cool. I can do that. I can stand around and watch, and they just jump in. And it's intimidating, right? When you're a young guy and suddenly, Canada's a big deal coaching rugby, especially then. The early 90s was Canada was still a very, very strong side. So he gathers everybody around. He goes, "Right," he says, "Dickie's going to take the warm up," and off he goes, just disappears. And I'm stood there with all of these, these Canadian stars around me, and I'm sort of panicking, and I'm thinking, right, what do you do? So I finally come up with a couple of these lame sort of warm up things, and I get through it. And I don't do a very good job, I've got to be honest, but I get through it. And we get through the session, and I do something. But on the walk back in, I said to Paul, "Well, thanks for the heads up." Honestly, I hadn't prepared anything. And he said, "Listen, you just need to get off your chest." And he said, "You're totally relaxed now, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, you're absolutely right. I am. I'm ready to go to work now." And it was a massive lesson. It was all about going forward and not worrying about whether somebody knew more than I did or whether I said the wrong thing. It was just, let's get this done and get on with the job, right? And from that point on, it never bothered me. I never thought about it. I just saw it as an exciting adventure to be able to do, again, different things at a new level, because, the guys are all on the same path, all at the same level. And there's some very skilled guys, that play for those young teams over the years that I worked with them. I think I did 3 Junior World Cups with Canada, and an under 20s tour to Ireland, I think in '98, and I did a Junior World Cup with the guys in Swansea as well. So I spent a lot of time. Oh, and I did the Welsh Cup with the national men as well. I forgot about that. So that was an interesting experience as well. That was with Pat Parfrey and Australian Dave. And again, it's just so much you can learn from watching these guys work. So it was a wonderful, wonderful journey in Canada, and it turned me from being a player who, thought he was a pretty good player, going into a coach who thought he knew an awful lot because he'd been a good player, to becoming a coach who realised he knew absolutely nothing as a player, thought he knew an awful lot, really, really didn't know anything, and was lucky enough to, sort of get where you got into really wanting to dissect the game and play around with it. I was never able to just sit and watch somebody else and go, "I'm going to copy that." I always wanted to know what the purpose was, and I wanted to analyse what was going on and then pull it out of the game and give it to guys and go, "Look, this is meaningful information. Let's do this," and then that won't happen. We don't have to practice that because that's not the issue. It's this bit back here that's not right, and that's why that's not right. So forget that, and we'll do this right. And it was just marvellous. I mean, it was just such a wonderful journey of discovery at every level, that, I mean, really had no right to have made. I mean, that's it. It was just such a wonderful sort of interlock of events. and surrounded by, guys like Tana helped me coach, and Dorsey, Archie Lees, George, Lynn. It was just, Brent Gallagher. I mean, Brent was, the Whites. My goodness, Chow, the names, Holowaychuk. They were guys who were setting up this incredible environment, and it was such a great time to be part of that and be surrounded by it and be a part of it. And it was really solid. So, my years in Canada were invaluable in taking me from that player to being, a guy who actually sort of understood the game of rugby a little bit, and was able to then go forward with that knowledge.
Perfect. Well, that obviously led to more for you. And I remember the day when I found out you were going to tackle on a new challenge. So you went off to be, the coach of the Cayman Islands national team, as well as the technical director for their rugby program at the time.
Yeah. Basically went as a director of rugby and the national coach. Yeah.
So, and I remember one of the first tours you did was bringing a bunch of the juniors over to our rugby park. And I remember as a junior getting to play against the kids from the Cayman Islands, and what an awesome experience. And not only was it, good to see you back at the club, but also at the same time, often when we play against touring teams, they're from England, Wales, Ireland, wherever, typically Europe. But to see kids coming over from Cayman Islands, it was an awesome experience. And it was one of those games against the touring side that I'm not going to rub it in too much, but I remember we won. So we don't always get those against touring sides.
Yeah, exactly. It was a magic. Literally Cayman was a whiteboard. There was no youth rugby at all. There was no girls rugby. There was pretty much no locals playing rugby. A couple of notable exceptions, very, very brilliant notable exceptions. But it was basically an expat game playing on a Saturday. So it was just a blank cover to come down and get started. So I kind of watched what went on for a year, and then in year two, I started to formulate, some plans. One of which was this junior program, and we had this sort of mixed collection of guys. Some of who played a bit of rugby at school in Europe or somewhere else before they'd moved, and an awful lot of kids who had just no comprehension of what rugby was at all. I mean, when you're standing there explaining that you can run forwards and pass the ball backwards, you don't have to run backwards to pass the ball backwards. You're sort of at that level. And I had, I don't know, 12, 13 lads that used to come every Saturday, but there's nobody to play. So, I mean, you can only play so much, 3-on-3, 5-on-5. So I said, you know what? We're going to go to Canada. We're going to play in Canada, and we're going to go do this. And it was really just the case of, this is really what the game's about. And if I can get that message onto these kids, then maybe we'll get some more playing when we get back. And if we get some more going, then we can put some pressure on to get into the school. So we came, and it was just, I can't tell you how welcoming it was. And I still see a lot of those lads around. They're all grown men with their own families now. And I see them around, and everybody still talks very fondly of that whole experience of coming to Canada. And, these guys hadn't seen snow, right? So, I mean, the joke was, is that snow coach? And it was like, no, they get up and paint that every year, and the guys are, oh, wow, that's cool, that's for good pictures and stuff, right? And I remember going whitewater rafting, and it's just, the guys have no concept of what water is. It's not 80 degrees, it's just, so I've never laughed so much as these guys touching the water, and it was a phenomenal experience, and it absolutely had the desired effect. And when we got back, word got out that we'd been on this amazing tour, and our junior program really started growing. So, like everything, once you plant the seeds, if you water it, it will continue to grow. So, I took a lot of what I'd learned in Canada. And put it in place in sort of long-term athlete development programs and long-term programs in Cayman, with a full expectation that I was going to be here for some time as a director of rugby. There was a really big expat community at the time, and some phenomenal players involved in that. Some guys that had sort of played England A and stuff like this. Some very good, New Zealand under 19s and this kind of thing. So, getting hold of that lot, an older and experienced crew, we were able to put a very good team out, and we actually had huge success right off the bat with the men. I mean, at one point we held every single championship in the Caribbean, which was unheard of out here. So, that crew of guys was very strong. It's very easy to work with. We didn't need to do a lot of training because there was an awful lot of knowledge. And I used to just work on the small issues with those guys. Same thing. Fix the small stuff, and the big stuff will look after itself. So, did a lot of that sort of stuff, and it was great. But it was all about growing, and financing and paying for the youth, because I needed to get people off island, and I needed to get them on island. So I could either pay for teams to come in or pay for teams to go off, which was the only way I could get competition at that time, because there was no youth competition in the Caribbean at all. It only started at men and no women's either. So, there was a lot of that sort of development. And, over time, the mix of Kamanian children playing to the mix of expat children starts growing. And you start getting the local athletes out, which then is complete full circle to arriving in Canada. So I now get to see all of the special qualities these guys bring to the game with what they do, based around what I learned in Canada, what I learned, internationally. So again, it's just such an exciting thing to create this fusion of local rugby. This is the way best suited to playing rugby, and we had, in the 16 years I was director, I mean, we had huge successes, so far beyond our means that they're incredible. I mean, we made the Hong Kong Sevens, we won women's regionals, we won 5 under 19 regionals, we played in the top 32 in the world in Kenya in the Junior World Trophy. Just so many wonderful achievements that the guys and the girls made, because again they created that culture, that environment to do that. The unique quality that is so difficult to comprehend if you don't come from here is that all of that success and all of that culture and all of that environment, there was only ever around maybe 40 or 50 players at any level playing anywhere on the island at any age group. So, we actually qualified to go to Hong Kong in a tournament. We flew with 9 players and won the qualifying tournament to go to Hong Kong. And, we played in the Youth Commonwealth Games with 9 players against all the Commonwealth teams, because we just didn't have any more players. So that's what we went and that's what we played with, So they're very unique challenges, but obviously huge advantages, because you're able to build elite athletes because you have so much one-on-one time with those players, and you're able to work so much on core skill that when they get into competitive situations, if they're fit, they're actually, better equipped than the guys they're playing against. So you can get this success to work. And again, it's just such a magic experience of observing and learning and adapting. It's and I've been so fortunate to be around so many wonderful athletes that are willing to sort of do that experiment with me and believe in me enough to let me do it. And see what happens. So it's been great, and after nearly 30 years or whatever it was, as a professional coach, and now I'm out of it. I enjoy my weekends again. Once again, I'm not out till 9:30, 10 at night. So now I get to enjoy watching all of those people grow and achieve stuff, and work in rugby or work in other sport, become great fathers and husbands and friends. And I see so many guys I'm in contact with globally. I've actually got one staying with me right now. It's just such a wonderful brotherhood, and it's so wonderful to observe so many people's lives and been invited in, because I really feel that's a bond a player and a coach have. I have to invite the player into my life, and they have to invite me into theirs. And I think once you have that connection, that's a lifelong thing. So it's wonderful. Every now and then I'll get an email or WhatsApp or something. And I mean, it'd just be somebody going, just wanted to tell you this had happened. And I'm like, wow, where did that come from? It could be somebody. It's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. It's wonderful to follow, what's happened. And so I've had, an absolute lifetime full of wonderful memories from rugby. There's never really been any bad times. It's just been a wonderful ride, and I feel very fortunate to have been able to take it.
So here's the big question for everyone that's going to be listening to this. When you're there back in the UK and you saw that ad and you got sorted out to get on the plane and go over, did you ever see a life that would kind of take you the direction it did, where you ended up coaching like that, ended up in the Cayman Islands? And
it's no, I mean, I had no idea. Like I say, I was a very different guy back then, full of the cockiness of youth and all of that sort of stuff. And very different guy. And no, I mean, I kind of came because I wanted to get fit and I wanted to hang out and I wanted to see Canada and, I wanted to sort of rehab my shoulder to go back and have one last crack at stuff. And I left an entirely different man. And I say that quite literally. I came as a young man and I left as a man. When I left Canada, I realized that, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about other people. I learned what it was like to be enveloped in a loving, friendly environment where what you were or what you did or where you came from or what your parents did was important. It didn't matter. Everyone was just like, man, so good to meet you. I'd say, let's do this, let's do that. And I'd be in a bar and I'd order a beer and the girl next to me would say, wow, where are you from? I love your accent. And she'd talk to you. And I came from the UK where, you'd ask a girl to dance and she'd sort of look you up and down and go, no, thanks. You sort of crawl away on your hands and knees, So it was just such a magic culture, and it absolutely sort of gave me this opportunity to sort of blossom. And I always felt that about Canada. It's a country where you're allowed to grow, and develop. And it's a wonderful place. I miss it a lot.
So are you planning on coming back for a visit at any time, or?
Yeah, obviously both my kids still live in Edmonton and have no plans of moving. So I like to try and get back at least once a year. We can't get off the rock at the moment with the current situation. So as soon as I can, I'm going to come back because it's been a couple of years since I've been able to get over. But I always try and get back once a year and do the Druids Day if I can, and then hang out and head up to the Yukon with Johnny Mack, who's another lifelong friend that I made, through the Druids. So, it's a place of very fond memories and an awful lot of very good friends still, that I love to catch up with when I'm back. There's so many people. It's impossible to mention them all, but I know who they are,
Yeah. And so for a lot of those that you coached or, you got to know in the club that may not know what you're up to these days, why don't you fill everyone in?
Well, I kind of packed up the whole rugby thing at 50. It was time from the union's point of view, and it was time from my point of view. We'd reached sort of pinnacles of achievement at that point that would have taken so much more funding to grow or even maintain. The decision was with the funding that, listen, we need to sort of rein this back a bit. Now we've kind of achieved, and we'll try and maintain. And my attitude was kind of, well, I want to continue. So if you're not going to do that, I'm going to step away for a while and let calmer minds and better minds prevail, and you can carry on, and I'll go do something else. So I went out and a friend of mine said, listen, I think I can get you a job at my pool company. And I was like, okay, like doing what? And he said, building pools. Okay. Well, I don't know too much about that, but I've got a degree in mechanical engineering, so I should be able to figure this out. and, so, I learned about when I worked in this thing for sort of 5 hours a day, 4 days a week, 5 days a week for about 4 years. And then I was like, a friend of mine said, listen, I've got a construction company and I build a lot of swimming pools. So I'd like you to come over and work with me and we'll build pools together under my company. So I said, yeah, you know what? I think I know enough now to do that. Let's go this. So off we went. And then we just got started. We built a couple of pools and it was pretty good. There's a lot of learning on the job. And then COVID hit. So this idea sort of went south. And he said, listen, do you want to buy the company? And I said, yeah, why not? I'll buy it. And I've got another very good friend I work with at Pool Patrol. So I called him and said, hey, do you fancy coming over and joining? He said, yeah, let's do it. So the two of us now are doing this swimming pool company. And to be fair, I run the business side of things and my partner's the hands-on guru with swimming pools. Just to clear that up, I'm not actually on the tools on this job. So yeah, we're actually building top-end swimming pools in the Cayman Islands at the moment, which is fun. It's an enjoyable occupation, and it's nice to sort of work, as and when we want to, really, which is what it's all about at this point. And then yeah, I'm not sure what's in the future. There's, like I say, like I mentioned to you off camera, I'm doing some work with a company who has a product that they are trying to take global, who approached me a couple of years ago to sort of help them get into rugby and to help them understand, the ethos of rugby and what it's about for their marketing and stuff. So as part of that, I was able to negotiate, a sort of a payback that can be used for rugby as part of their sort of income, as a, I don't know, grant, whatever kind of thing you want to call it. So that's exciting, and that's an exciting project, and that sort of launch will be happening soon, and then it'll be interesting to see if it gets traction and if there is cash. But it's, those kind of things, the funding of the game and stuff is what I enjoy. I've always enjoyed grassroots. I mean, if you grow good grass, you get good crops. And you get teams that win stuff because that's what people want to do. But it's not really about that. It's all about how much fun you have when you're playing as a youngster that makes you want to get better and then go on to win stuff, right? And, I think it's easier to coach guys at that level than it is to do the grassroots stuff and sow the love. So that's kind of, where it's all at still with me. And that's if I get back involved where I'll go.
Perfect. Well, one of the things I like to do, just kind of at the end of the interviews, is give everyone a chance to just say whatever it is that they kind of want to say to different club members from the past or present. So, the floor is yours.
That's a good one. Yeah, I mean, obviously, listen, I have nothing but peace and love for everybody that I interacted with in Canada. I feel so privileged for the experience and the time. And I haven't mentioned many of the girls. There's been some, Jenny Marler and Tanis and Jen, just wonderful, wonderful friends. Babysat my kids when they were born. Brandy Wiggins, just wonderful, wonderful people. And I've been so lucky to have had the opportunity to get to know them, like I say, to get to be part of their lives for a while, to have them as part of my life. From that time forward, I love seeing, I love hearing about people. And I just wish everybody the best. It's all about being happy and carrying on and looking after yourself and other people. And, that's what life's all about, right? And rugby's just a part of that, big part, but it's just a part of that fraternity and that environment. And keep enjoying it, keep playing, stay involved. Don't move away from it just because you can't play or because you can't do something. There's a place and a need for you. It's not like people open the door up and say, come in, you poor soul. There's a need for you in rugby. There's always going to be a need. If you want to be involved, there's a need for you to be involved. So stay involved because it's just magic.
Well, those are some good words. I know you got to be up at 5 a.m. That's the nature of the pool business, I guess.
Yeah.
So
it gets hot early.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a big thanks for myself and honestly for the club for not just what you did for the club back in, the 90s and helping kind of coach the club all those years, for coming on. Like, appreciate this. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who are excited to hear from you.
Absolute privilege. Like I say, it's a magic experience. I've loved every minute of it, and I'm delighted. I'm delighted to chat. Yeah, I'll be very surprised if anybody watches it actually. But yeah, great to know.
There will be a few. Yeah, you've been mentioned a few times. So you've been mentioned a few times, so there will be a few watchers.
Yeah, and I think you're doing a great job, Dennis. This is awesome. Absolutely awesome. Good on you.
No, it's great catching up with people from the past for sure. So, yeah. And then just makes for more when we actually see each other in person in the future. So
absolutely phenomenal.
Right on. Okay, cheers.
Cheers, Dennis. Take care, man.